Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 57, Tuesday, April 16th. I got some catching up to do here, so we're going to blow through it. Announcement number one, reminder that Austin Deathfest is Saturday, April 27th and Sunday, April 28th. It's coming up quick. You can get tickets at prekindle.com. There's single day and full weekend passes, I believe. And I thought it might be fun to just talk about the top 5 bands that I want to see at Austin Deathfest. So I'll start with number 5, Mortuous. I love watching Chad Gailey play drums. I've seen Mortuous once before, some fest on the West Coast. I can't remember, maybe one of the Decibel Fests or something. It was really heavy. But I always love specifically watching drummers, and Chad is one of the best. So that's number 5. Number 4, Siverus, who just put out a record on 20 Buck Spin. They're really sort of taking off, getting some hype. The Melon did a review of the record. I want to reserve judgment until I see it live. So I'm excited about seeing how that translates for sure. Number 3, Lunar Chamber. So these guys sort of approach death metal with a relatively unexplored shtick of like Buddhism, Eastern mysticism and stuff like that, with the artwork and the subject matter and really sort of the sound too. It's like this whole transcendental thing. I think this is their first show ever. So that's number 3, Lunar Chamber. Another 20 Buck Spin band. Number 2, Mortiferum. Very good band. I saw these guys in Phoenix 2018, I think. Early 2018 at Masters Chambers, and I was very impressed. And I have not seen them since, but they can play. They can write songs. Very heavy. Cool presence live. Very straightforward. Number 2, Mortiferum. Number 1, The Boys. Outer Heaven. The best and heaviest live set that I witnessed in 2019 that I honestly can't even remember another set off the top of my head from 2019. But the one I remember clearly is Outer Heaven, Philadelphia, Union Transfer. That was on their tour with Nails and Ulthar, I think. And we were fortunate enough to catch that. And through a PA like that, yeah, it was a force to be reckoned with. So that's it. Mortuous, Siverus, Lunar Chamber, Mortiferum, Outer Heaven. Of course, I'm psyched to see Tomb Mold, Witch Vomit. There's a ton of great bands playing. Get your tickets at prekindle.com or whatever it is. Announcement number 2. I have established contact with J-Dog. So you can stop emailing me to reach out to J-Dog. It seems like we're going to set it up. I'm just waiting to hear back from him on a date. So that's exciting. We'll have 2 similar but unique worlds colliding on that episode. So yeah, I have questions set for J-Dog that I think will produce the most entertaining results. But if you have questions for J-Dog that you want me to ask him, email me at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Instructions and email address are in the description of this podcast as well. I'm getting sort of backlogged with emails, so you do have the option to PayPal $10 to that email address. Write me your question; it'll move to the front of the line, and we have a few of those today. I knew I had some emails to catch up on today, but I always like to talk about a specific subject and have an album of the week discussion. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I was thinking about the Doors the other day, Jim Morrison, how he's more punk rock and more metal than most like metal frontmen today. Maybe I'll save that for another day, because I was putting some miles in on Sunday, and Mike Fury shot me a text. He said, "Hey man, just so you know, by the way, I don't do Instagram, Facebook, none of that. So I'm kind of out of the loop, but I have spies." And intel agents, and Mikey's one of them. My wife's one of them. They just sort of let me know what's going on if it's relevant to my world. That way I don't have to see any of the bullshit that freaks people out all day long, 24 hours, But Mikey texted me and was like, hey, it's Kirk Windstein's birthday, just so you know, if you want to hit him up. So I did. I was out getting some miles out in the woods, and I put on the album behind me, Crowbar, self-titled from 1993. Shot Kirk a text and figured I'd talk about Crowbar. I was like, that's what I'll talk about. In celebration of the old man's birthday, we'll do another one of these episodes where we're putting respect on a legendary figure in metal while they're still here to appreciate it. I think that can kind of become like a running like episode theme. I did Hail Fenriz a couple episodes ago. Today we're doing Hail Kirk Windstein. There's a lot to talk about with this dude. I'm going to assume everyone listening to this has heard Crowbar. I would be shocked if you haven't, but just a brief rundown. If you took the first two Trouble albums, early Melvins, first wave New York hardcore, particularly like Carnivore Retaliation, maybe early Madball, early Biohazard, and then the melodic sensibilities and the songwriting skill of like 70s FM hard rock, everything from Zeppelin to, I would even say like Genesis and Black Sabbath, just 70s FM radio rock, the melodies and the catchy hooky songwriting. And then you took the grit and the humidity and the weight of New Orleans, put it in a blender, you get Crowbar. You get something brand new that's never really existed before. They have the breakdowns and the heaviness of that New York hardcore stuff. They have the anguish in the guitars and the guitar harmonies and sort of epic, sad sounding aspects of Trouble and Sabbath and bands like that. And then just really well written, concise songs. Even their songs that are really long are still structured in a way that they're concise, and there's not like they're not making the songs long just to be long. So I figured a cool way to start this off would just be to rank my top 5 Crowbar albums. These guys were one of the first underground bands I ever discovered. I bought some CDs through the Relapse mail order catalog, which is strange because Crowbar was never on Relapse, but I know for sure that's where I discovered them. So I've been listening to them since I was about 16 or so. Crowbar was one of the first bands I saw. We had a little tiny venue in my hometown growing up, but it was all local bands and bands from Tulsa and, just all kinds of stuff. Not a lot of metal bands really. But one of the very first big metal shows I saw was Crowbar in New York, believe it or not. And then I saw them 2 weeks later in Tulsa, same tour. And so that was the one in New York was like the first time I saw Weed Eater. Alabama Thunder Pussy was on it. You guys remember them? Classic Relapse, Richmond, Virginia. It's like punk rock Leonard Skinner, basically. COC was on that tour also. So I've been rocking with Crowbar since I was a young man, and I want to talk about my 5 favorite records. All their records are good. Every single one of their records will have at least one song on it that you're like, that's one of the coolest metal songs I've ever heard. And some of them are that for the whole time. So, of course, I couldn't just narrow this down to 5. I had to do like a runner-up thing. I want to mention their last 2 records. I'll just say they're tied for runner-up. Zero and Below came out in 2022. That's the one they put out when we toured with them. The one before that is incredible too. The Serpent Only Lies, 2016. Those are 2 of their strongest albums. They've been around since 1989. They've been putting out records since shortly after that, and consistently too. They have like the Motorhead consistency, But it's cool to see a band be that deep into their career, 1989 to 2016, and then bam, they put out one of their best records, and then the next record is one of their best records. So inspiring. Those two are great. That's your runner-up slot. Number 5, the one that I could not put those records above is Sonic Excess in its purest form. That came out in 2001. And the reason, I wanted to put one of their newer records on this list because they're great. But the reason I couldn't put them above this, the whole record's great, but two of the best metal songs ever in my book, Lasting Dose and Through the Ashes I Watched You Burn. And they were playing Through the Ashes when we toured with them. And holy shit. I don't think that I make music or songs that sound like Crowbar, but if you study it on paper, it becomes super obvious like how influential this band is on my writing. And one of the things, I mentioned all the musical influences, and if you put most of those on paper, it like Crowbar and Spirit Adrift are exactly the same on paper. One of the other things is like writing really profound emotional lyrics in the context of heavy metal. I remember when we released Enlightened Eternity, which was sort of like, suffering is always a key component of Spirit Adrift songs. It's a very real, experience-based subject matter, which Crowbar has that as well. But I try to twist it into empowerment and that sort of, uplifting, like light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. And I remember when Enlightened came out, so much of the reaction with the metal press was like, wow, a positive metal record, a metal record about like overcoming challenges. And some of them were acting like it was this novel thing. And I'm like, have you ever listened to Judas Priest? Have you ever listened to Dio? Like there's a whole precedent set of like self-empowerment metal. Vulgar Display of Power is another example. And Crowbar has that as well. And that song Through the Ashes from Sonic Excess is like it's the musing on like pain and suffering is a part of life and overcoming it is a part of life. It's that juxtaposition of like going through something really brutal, but coming out the other end stronger. I think I really kind of subconsciously got that from Crowbar. So yeah, number 5 is Sonic Excess, especially because of those two songs. Number 4, one of the supergroup records, Oddfellows Rest, 1998. Of course, this one has the big hit on it, Planets Collide. Probably their best song. I think Kirk considers it his best song, if not one of his best songs. And the supergroup lineup I speak of, is Todd Strange, who's the longtime bass player, sort of the bass player of Crowbar. And then you have Sammy from Acid Bath on guitar and Jimmy Bauer from every New Orleans band ever on drums. Great record. Same lineup. I actually prefer just barely. I just think it's a little more raw, a little more heavy. Number 3, Broken Glass from 1996. I don't hear people talking about that one enough. You really hear the New York hardcore influence on a lot of those songs. Another thing I really appreciate about Crowbar too is when you start the album, you're going to get, like every song sounds like Crowbar, it's obvious, but you're going to get ebbs and flows. You're going to get like light and shade, I think is how Jimmy Page referred to it. So you're going to get crushed. You're going to hear like the heaviest riffs you've ever heard. But there's going to be some songs with dynamics and where they sort of ease up. They trade out the baseball bat they've been hitting you with for like a candle or something. So number 2 is a good example of that. Sever the Wicked Hand, 2011. I think this is the overlooked hidden gem of the Crowbar catalog. And in a lot of ways, it's actually probably my favorite Crowbar record. I missed this one because it came out in 2011 and I was moving, doing like a major life change and moving cross country from Arkansas to Arizona. So just, I don't know. I didn't hear it. I had too much going on. I ended up hearing it on tour years later. I think I heard a few songs from it, maybe even live. But I heard the whole record on tour quite a bit later when Eric from Gatecreeper played it. And I knew it was Crowbar, but I was like, what record is this? He said Sever the Wicked Hand. And from start to finish, it's perfect. It's a perfect record. If you like Crowbar, I mean, it's like everything cool about Crowbar done as good as you could possibly do it from start to finish. And again, like really super profound lyrics about just the human condition and the struggle and overcoming the struggle and hope, that sort of thing. I think it's their most hopeful and positive record, but at the same time, musically, it's got some of the bleakest, heaviest parts they've ever done. Number one, obviously, the record behind me, self-titled, Crowbar from 1993, produced by Phil Anselmo. I think he's even in there doing some low talking vocals here and there. It might be Kirk doing it. I don't know. This is another perfect record. Every second of it's cool. Covers are dangerous, especially covers of like classic rock songs from the 70s when you're a metal band. I should know. They cover No Quarter by Zeppelin, and taking that riff, the chorus riff, which is one of the best Zeppelin riffs. I would say one of Jimmy Page's best riffs, but I'm not sure if it was him or John Paul Jones that wrote it. It was probably Page. But to take that riff, turn it New Orleans, and then put a treble guitar harmony over it. Zeppelin only had one guitarist, but Crowbar's always had two. And yeah, you know, my favorite covers are when the band plays the song exactly as it is, but because they're okay. So take like Pantera covering Hole in the Sky. They don't change the song at all, but because they're Pantera, it sounds like Pantera playing Hole in the Sky. That's the point of a cover to me. There's the other school of thought where you completely change it and make it your own. Every once in a while, that creates something kind of special, but 99% of the time, it creates some unlistenable dog shit. So I prefer when a band plays it straight, and you know, Crowbar covering No Quarter sounds like Crowbar playing the song No Quarter. That's where the appeal is in a cover for me. But yeah, dude, start to finish, I mean, the record's so packed full of gems and super powerful riffs that the last song is I Have Failed, one of their most popular songs. Just a great record. I think Kirk Windstein, I made the best riffers of all time list, and he's on there. When I think for dudes that are still doing it right now, per capita, per minute, might have the highest ratio of BRPM, big riffs per minute. He's up there for sure. Never made a bad record. You know, I think his birthday last year, Jamie Josta compared him to Lemmy. He's our generation's Lemmy. And I would agree with that, except I think he's even more diehard in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's, you know, this man has stayed the course through ebbs and flows and trends and ups and downs, and he never strayed from his creative vision once with Crowbar, not once. Crowbar is doing as good a job as anybody nowadays of taking out relevant younger bands and giving them a shot and exposing the Crowbar fans to these new generation of riffers. These guys were so kind and welcoming to us on tour. You know, they say don't meet your heroes, and that's been true for me in a few instances. But you know, despite all the complaining that you hear from people in bands about merch cuts and this and that, and the challenges and the monotony and the boredom of touring, and how streaming is like gutting record industry and you can't make a living and all that. Despite all that bullshit, there's nothing that you could pay millions of dollars for to replicate the feeling of going on tour with one of your heroes and he's cool, you know? That is the best. You know, I think that and the connection to fans through stuff like this podcast, you know, a lot of the emails I get from you guys, that is the reward of putting in all the years and hours and practicing and touring and all that. And yeah, the Crowbar dudes were super nice to us. Shout out to Tommy Buckley, Matt, Shane, Robin. Happy birthday, Kirk Windstein, man. The Riff Lord, and he truly is. Go listen to those Crowbar albums. And that's it. I'm going to emails. Did I always got to like stop myself and think, did I forget something? I don't know. Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about Down. The first Down record in particular. I think that might be the best thing that any of those guys ever did. And Kirk helped write it, played guitar on it, and from what I understand, played bass on it as well. And what a record. I'm going to talk about that record a little more in depth at some point. I think my next top 10 thing, if you're just listening, I put out a top 10 Doom albums on YouTube last week. That's why I wasn't here for a podcast. I think my next one's going to be Southern Sludge. So there'll definitely be some Crowbar and Down on that. Okay, emails. First of all, shout out to everyone that wrote in about Coffin Storm. There's a lot of you guys. Apparently, Coffin Storm is right in the middle of the Big Riff Energy demographic because a ton of you guys appreciated it as much as I did. I'm still listening to it. I'm still listening to Nile too. I got some Nile records from Relapse the other day. Shout out to Relapse Records. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm still jamming Coffin Storm big time. Something about hearing something that was recorded in a practice space. You just don't hear stuff, a practice space in a kitchen. You don't hear stuff like that anymore. Everything kind of sounds like the same amp sim and the same mix and master. They mastered it super dynamic and quiet, which is just, I don't know, it makes it feel more alive or something. Okay, I'm doing this episode way earlier than I normally do, so I hope my brain is like kicked into gear. Another shout out before I get to the fan questions here. Josh from Michigan sent me this badass Solitude Eternus Beyond the Crimson Horizon shirt. I'm going to put my finger up so that this edit will be more obvious later for me. Yeah, Josh, man, thank you. That's awesome. You get priority question status if you have a question for the podcast. Thank you, man. Cool shirt. Okay, here we go. JR with the paid question. Actually, a couple of you guys just like would send a payment and then like a week later ask a question, which is fine. But if I forget and I get mixed up, just forgive me and just the easiest way to do it is to send the PayPal and the question at the same time. But I did remember you guys from a couple weeks ago. JR, first I would like to implore your listeners to tithe to the Church of the Big Riff and support you in this channel, whether or not they have a question. Man, I don't like church, but it would be cool to not have to pay taxes. I wonder how we could go about. I mean, that's the best part of having a church or a religious organization is not paying the government to wage endless war all over the globe. So somebody look into how we turn this into a religious organization so that I can stop giving the IRS money. I discovered your podcast early on and have listened to every episode. I love Spirit Adrift and have completed my collection of your records. I started my record collection in January. My friend told me I'm a record junkie. We'll see, dude. We'll see in a year if you're a true junkie. If your life has fallen apart because you had to buy 5 Crowbar records, then we'll consider that status. I sent you an email before asking you how to discover new music and weed through the overabundance of music available. This channel has done a great job. When you mention something I haven't heard, I automatically put it on my list to listen to. I even gave Typo another try, still not a fan. However, Coffin Storm and Church of Misery are 2 standouts that I would not have discovered if it hadn't been for you. Awesome, man. Yeah, I've talked about how we had to look at t-shirts that dudes were wearing in promo photos or read liner notes. Or I remember even like Amazon, when it first came around, had a feature where you could do like lists of like best melodic death metal albums or whatever, and it was just users on Amazon like ranking their products. So in that case, like CDs or whatever. So we had to jump through all kinds of hoops to figure out what was cool. So I'm glad to be like part of that process for some of you guys. That's one of the coolest payoffs here. All right, question 1. Can you give us 1, the name of your new project, 2, your role, 3, anticipated release date, 1, no, I can't, 2, your role, i.e. vocals, guitar, etc. I'll just answer that yes, and then 3, anticipated release date this year. That's it. I'm not trying to be like willfully obtuse about any of this. I just think there's not much nowadays that is like mysterious, or I don't even know if mysterious is the right word, but just I don't know. Everybody has instant access to all information that they could possibly desire, and everything about everything, and it kind of takes the surprise and the thrill out of things a little bit. So part of it is that. Another part of it is like, shout out to my friend Tato for cluing me in on this interview. This dude, Nate the Train, MMA fighter, who I like a lot. He did an interview recently where he said, if you have to talk about what you're up to, then you ain't up to nothing worth talking about. So part of it's that too. I did the same thing at the beginning of Spirit Adrift. I just wanted it to, I was focused on doing it rather than talking about it. My least favorite thing, one of my least favorite things, one of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody is just has a new idea every day that they're talking about. Oh, we should do this. Okay, go ahead. And they never do it. And then, oh, I got this great idea. I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. And it's like the boy that cried wolf, So I try to do the opposite, When I hear a lot of talking, but I don't see no action, it sort of paints that person in a specific type of light. So it'll be out this year. I'll just say that. You know what? Just so I'm not ripping you off on your question, I'll tell you about what's going on with the other band. I started writing another record for Spirit Adrift. Finally. Let's see. Probably early last year, midway through last year, I think I had 3, 4, 5 like rough outlines of songs, just kind of, throwing stuff out there. And then I set all that aside to do this new thing. And yeah, we're like knee deep in the rollout, the album rollout. War Machine is cranking back up for the new thing. So the creative part of it is kind of over with, the musical part of it. So I've been picking up a guitar lately and I'm writing stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's Spirit Adrift. So I can talk to you a little bit about that. It's going to be the heaviest Spirit Adrift record that we've done. And I think I've figured out a way to do something really unique too. So that's where we're at with that. I'm going to get more into what's going on with Spirit Adrift later with some of these other questions that I skimmed. Question 2 from this guy, from JR. Is there any chance of putting the live recording on vinyl? I would love to have that. If so, I would like to pre-order the first copy. Damn, son. Thank you, man. I've talked to 20 Buck Spin a little bit about putting that out. Unfortunately, live records, especially nowadays, I don't even think these kids know what a live record is, a lot of them. So, historically speaking, the labels and bands have a little bit of harder time moving them. And yeah, I don't know. It's like a maybe. I'll just say it's a maybe. Okay, but if we do, I'll let you know. Eric with the paid question. Hey, Nate. Hope all is well. Eager to hear the new project. Thank you for introducing me to Solitude Eternus. I'm venturing into their work, and I'm blown away by how good it is. It's got depth, groove, thick-ass riffs, and superior songwriting. Listening to the verse riff and Transcending Sentinels, I can't help but think of a certain Spirit Adrift song from Divided. Can you guess? Can I guess? Yeah, I wrote it. Yeah, I was going for that, but if it was on Kill 'Em All. So there's like a little bit of that, but there's also maybe a little bit of No Remorse. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can guess. Duh. I'm interested in the videos set up you use for the podcast. Content is so important for new bands these days. Unfortunately, yeah, I would almost like argue with you on that, though. Hoping you can spur some ideas and maybe give recommendations for a budget setup, a video rig rundown of sorts. Yeah, dude, content is not important. It's, music is important. At the end of the day, like, if you don't have the tunes, it doesn't matter what else you're doing. And your band might even blow up. I mean, we can see proof of that everywhere you look. Bands that are blowing up that don't have any tunes, that don't have any songs, that don't have any riffs, but it's going to go away super fast. It always does. And then also at the same time, like, I just don't feel like that would be satisfying to build a band on a foundation of social media content. I don't know. I know a couple people who are like have hard-ons for social media that it's like they're as addicted to it as a heroin addict is to heroin, or like a person sitting at a slot machine. It's the exact same type of addiction, and there's science to back that up. But to me, I don't think there's been anything like lamer or less interesting in the history of the world than obsessing over like ones and zeros of a thumbs up on your fucking Facebook or Instagram. I think that is the weakest, lamest shit that the human race has ever conceived of. And, you know, technically doing a podcast is like a form of social media, but these are more long form. It's a whole different attitude. I try to go deep on stuff that I love, that excites me, and connect with people that way rather than connect with people in a half a second interaction or connect with people because we're arguing about which tribe we belong to when the people running those tribes are all on the same team. What George Carlin said, they're all in the same club, and guess what? You ain't in it, you know? But they got us all like arguing on social media and shit. I got no fucking interest in that. That's why I block trolls on the comments of YouTube also. Fuck y'all. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to erase you from my fucking life whenever I want to. Okay, what? Man, you got me off. Yeah, fuck this content shit. Sorry, that word like triggered me a little bit. I know what you mean though. I think it is important, but it pisses me off that it's important. I guess that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, I got a pretty budget set up here. I just got a new Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. I just got this like 2 days ago. This one's cool because it has automatic gain control. So I don't have to worry about like clipping, anything like that. Yeah, I got this boom microphone arm on Amazon, SM7. pretty standard. You don't have to get a mic this nice at all. It doesn't matter all that much, honestly. And then let's see, ring light on a stand that I'm not even using right now. I just realized I didn't even turn this shit on. That was on Amazon also. And then just my phone, man. But the tricky part of this is something about iMovie. I just use a free iMovie. I've never paid for Final Cut. And I actually have a friend who worked for Apple who gave me like a promotional download for Logic. So that's what I use to record the audio. And then I put everything in iMovie. And the tricky part is something about the Apple stuff, the frame rate that it works at or something like that. The audio and the video get off after a certain amount of time. So you have to go in. There's some YouTube videos you can watch on how to fix that. So I have to do that shit every time I do one of these, like change the speed of the audio and drag this thing over. And that's the biggest pain in the ass. But as far as equipment, dude, J-Dog has 10,000 subscribers or something like that. And he doesn't have anything. He just literally records, I think, with his webcam on his computer and just uploads it as is, you know. I have a lot of trouble understanding his mumbling ass sometimes, though, which is why I have the microphone here. So yeah, that's it. You really literally don't need anything to do like a podcast or whatever. Okay, second question. As a guitarist, I'm also interested in what you're currently using with your guitar rig. You feel like showing some toys you're playing with. Take care. Appreciate you. Thanks, Eric. Gibson Les Pauls and Dunnable R2s. That's my go-to guitars live and in the studio. Sometimes in the studio we'll use like Strats and old different 70s Gibsons and whatever's around just for different colors, you know. Live in the States, been using the EVH 5153 amps. I love them. I could honestly just go straight into it and tour and be fine. But I do have some effects that I like. Earthquaker Dispatch Master is my favorite reverb, especially for clean. It just sounds like a bunch of ghosts, you know. It's a reverb and a delay, but I only use the reverb. I've used all kinds of different shit for lead guitar and stuff like that. I have Mesa Boogie old school big 412s and road cases. And yeah, I'm kind of always changing the effects and stuff like that. For Europe, I think we're going to start going down the Helix route. Actually, I got a Helix, and as much as I didn't want to, I love it. And part of that was inspired by Brett from Paul Bear, who figured out the absolute coolest way to implement a Helix into his live sound. So I talked to him a little bit about that, and I don't want to blow up his spot, so you're going to have to investigate that on your own. But yeah, that's it. It's always changing, always kind of trying to figure out what's the most efficient, but also efficient without sacrificing the cool factor of big ass amps and stuff on stage. But yeah, my favorite effects pedal ever is the Dispatch Master from Earthquaker. And my favorite guitars ever are Gibson Les Pauls and Dunnable R2D2s. Fabio from Australia. Hey Nate, would like to say thank you for your content. You got a fan for life here. Last year I went through a divorce after 18 years of marriage and 2 kids. It was not an easy thing to go through. During the darkest period, I found your YouTube channel. Your approach and passion for similar music plus your sense of humor immediately resonated with me in a big way. So thanks again. Keep on riffing, Fabio from Melbourne, Australia. Man, Fabio, that actually ties into what I'm about to talk about. I'm glad to be that guy for you. I'll just say that. Welcome, and I appreciate you, man. I'm loving the interactions with all of you Australian folks. You guys are really, really nice. I was just watching Theo Vaughn talk about being in Australia. I think he was over there for a tour, and he just talked about how insanely nice everybody was, to the point that it almost like freaked him out. Comparing it to America, being like, I almost felt like I wanted to put a knife in somebody's hand just so I felt like I was at home. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, thank you to everybody in Australia. You guys are consistently awesome, and I love that this stupid thing that I started to promote an album is now like reaching people in Australia and connecting. with people. It's cool. So speaking of which, I'm gonna take a sip of my beverage here. I've been hearing from a lot of fans in Europe wondering why Spirit Adrift was not on the Green Lung tour. And we had a driver last year in Europe from the Netherlands, and he would say, "Oh yeah, sorry," and I'd be like, "It's all good," and he said, "Well, I mean sorry as in it's sorry as in a heads up, not a sorry," and that always made me laugh, and because there's different kinds of sorries, you know. So sorry, but it's not a sorry. It's more of like a heads up. But no, in all honesty, I'm sorry that the information that we weren't playing did not reach you guys. We shared the announcements about not being on the tour. A lot of you said you were fans of the podcast, and I talked about how we weren't playing on a couple episodes on the podcast. So, but no, it's no fault of you guys, and it's no fault of ours. We were not able to do the tour. So Jens from Copenhagen, you wrote a really nice email. I appreciate it. And it's certainly not anything we have against Copenhagen. In fact, if I could pick one city to live in the world, I think it might be Copenhagen. I love your city. I love your country. We had a really, really good time the last time we were there. I sat in the park like all day long. It was amazing. And then Jan, there were several of you. Thank you for reaching out. Jan from Germany, I'm just going to read one of these and then I'll address what's going on. Hey, Nate, I seem to be living under a rock. I had no idea that you guys could not make it to the Green Lung tour. First of all, I hope everything is okay now and the issues are solved or gone and everything turned out to be okay. That's the most important. Yeah, unfortunately, not the case, but thank you. I respect the decision. Thank you, man. Family first. It must have burned under your nails to tour Europe with an album that strong to promote. And that awesome back catalog you build. Divided, Enlightened, the EP, and Ghost are amazing records that mean a lot to me. What an album run. I have the feeling that the EP is a bit overlooked, though. Great songs. I don't know if you remember me. I was at the show you guys did with Yob in Hanover, and after the gig, you and the guys signed my battle vest, and we had a WeChat quite some time ago now already. I wanted to give you a book I think you might enjoy. Big fan of the podcast. You had me with the first episode and the stuff about Nergal and gatekeeping. Spot on. Kindest regards from Germany. P.S. Really looking forward to your new mystery project. Hey, Jan. Yeah, I remember you, man. Here's what I remember about Hanover. I looked up the venue just to make sure I was correct. It's kind of the punk rock, CBGB, weirdo, East Berlin kind of vibe a little bit. I remember Aaron from Yob and I were trying to do a lot of like self-care on that tour. We went to like the sauna and jumped into the fjord in Norway. We did all that. And he was getting massages and stuff. So I'm going to go see if there's a place to get a massage. He came right back and he was like shaking his head like, nope, sketchy. I remember that. And I remember after we were done sound checking, we were all sitting on the stage and it was dark in there. And they played 40 Watt Sun, Wider Than the Sky. Is that the name of the album? And we all just sat there and listened to it. It was like, that's one of my favorite records ever made. And I remember you, and I remember mingling with people after the show, smoking cigarettes. And there was I'll call him, this might be you. If it's not you, maybe it is you, but if it's not you, we're all kind of mingling together. There was an elder statesman of the European metal contingency, I'll call him that, and he was tripping on my Born Too Late across my chest and telling me about St. Vitus and how much St. Vitus meant to him and how he saw him. Like St. Vitus didn't even tour that much back in the day, but I think he was telling me about how he saw him and how he discovered him and that record meant, and that philosophy like meant so much to him, you know? Yeah, I just remember chain smoking cigarettes with a bunch of maniacs outside of that show. It was a lot of fun. So I'm sure you were, if you're not that guy, you were one of those guys. I do remember signing a vest for sure. So thanks for reaching out, man. Thanks for the kind words about the records and the EP too. I really, if I had to pick a Spirit Adrift record to listen to on repeat, it would either be the last one or the Forge Your Future EP. And the EP is kind of cheating because it's shorter. But I'm really proud of that one. I really like how that one came out. There's nothing on it really that bothers me very much, which is rare when you make records. What else? Send me a book. Yeah, I'll email you post office box. And the funny thing about the Nergal and gatekeeping stuff is now that this podcast is really going, I bet you that I dislike an even higher percentage of newer bands than Nergal does. But the difference is I am so passionate about this shit that I put effort into finding new stuff instead of making blanket statements like there's no new good metal bands. I would never say some dumb shit like that. I would never, like, especially when you have a platform to like help someone that's coming up the same way that you came up. I would never say some dumbass shit like that. Was it just lazy bullshit? But the irony here is I think I probably am even more cynical in reality than that guy is about new music. But I put more effort in to finding stuff that I like, that I can get excited about, that I can help promote. That's our responsibility, man. And he knows that. I think it was one of those things where he was probably just talking shit off the dome and it sort of got taken out of context, or I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because the media, like, if you're in a long form conversation and you say one little thing like that, these people come in their pants because they know they just got a headline that's going to divide people and make people click on it and stuff like that. So yeah, dude, not making it to Europe, you know, what was it? Fabio from Australia talking about going through dark times and stuff like that. Yeah, there's just shit going on. And I think one of the grossest trends in society nowadays is like everybody wanting to be a victim. And to the point that people are making shit up about themselves. It's like they're putting effort into finding something about themselves that is like flawed, or like they have some condition, or they like there is a massive effort to be a victim by and large. And I'm speaking in general terms here, you know, and that shit is so gross, dude. Being a victim and then, you know, complaining about stuff when you don't have a solution. Like if you want to identify a problem and you have like potential solutions for it, cool. If you just want to complain and bitch and you're not going to do anything about it and you don't have any idea how to fix it, that stuff is so gross to me, man. But that's why I don't, you know, also just like respecting privacy of people. But I could easily come on here and give a fucking sob story about why we didn't go to Europe and why this isn't happening and that's not happening. But just know that there's things going on. And sometimes the only thing that you can do for people is be present. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do. You don't have to stress yourself out or them out trying to come up with a solution. Some problems don't have a solution and you just have to wait for things to resolve, you know? And we're talking, you know, I've been through some shit. I've been through some life and death shit. Not this like, oh, I got bipolar. Oh, I got clinical depression. Oh, whatever. And all that shit might be real. But there's also like life and death and prison and disability and tragedy and stuff like that. And I've been through a lot of that shit. And I'm grateful that I have, because it's, you know, I'm reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's book now, because of course I am. But he talks about like if his life had been 1 degree easier, he might not be writing the book. You know, if he didn't have a literal Nazi for a dad who came home and would beat the shit out of him drunk, he might not have ever wanted to do any of the stuff that he did. I didn't have a Nazi dad that beat me up drunk, obviously, but you get the point. But he also says if his life was 1 degree harder, he might have stayed in Austria and just become an alcoholic, you know? So it's trippy stuff to think about. But that's the kind of shit that's going on right now. And the best thing I can do is be present. I would love to be in two places at once and be present with the European Big Riff Energy contingency. But at the moment, this is just more important. And I've seen people choose make believe in they're important, make believe in they're some kind of rock star, and then end up at the end of their journey and they have no one. All these fans that love you, you know, I know it's genuine, but you're in Germany. Like if I needed something, if I needed help right now, like you couldn't do it. That's what family's for, right? That's the point I'm getting at. It's not that I don't appreciate all of you guys and fans and stuff like that, but sometimes you just have to make a choice. And I know I've seen firsthand that the most important thing is to prioritize your family. That's it. And there's no, that's why I'm keep quoting Martin from the Netherlands. Sorry, but it's not an actual sorry. It's more of a heads up. You know, I am sorry that you guys showed up expecting us to play there. That fucking sucks. But I am not sorry, nor do I question for a second the decision that I've made. And you guys have all been super cool about that too. So I thank you. Everyone was like, you know, when we agreed to that tour, I let everybody that needed to know that we might not be able to make it. I told them what was going on. And to a person, everyone has been super cool about it. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I mentioned that I'm writing riffs again that are sort of pointing me in the direction of another album, which I'm going to take my time on. There's no reason to rush it. We're working with a new European booking agent. So we should be back over there early next year. But for the time being, I'm focusing on the new mystery project that I refuse to tell you any details about. So yeah, that's where it is. Hail Kirk Windstein, man. Happy birthday, Kirk. Love you, brother. See you next week.